Hello everyone and welcome to Verde's first ever online home garden workshop. My name is Ana Regalado and I work at Verde as the greenhouse coordinator, but today I will be your presenter for our workshop on food systems. So this is going to be the first video in a year-long series for our home garden program year 1. Every other video will be able to be found here on our YouTube page. There's February through December. Go ahead and take a look at the next one whenever you're ready. But for today, we're going to go ahead and get started with our lesson overview. So for every class, online class here, we're going to always talk about 3 topics. We're going to talk about a health and nutrition topic, we're going to talk about a garden topic, and we're going to talk about a climate change topic and an action step to help mitigate the negative impacts of those climate change topics. In addition, today we're going to do a quick tip on reading nutrition labels and produce stickers, and we're going to do our announcements as always. So to get started, we're going to talk about our food system here in Santa Clara County. So first and foremost, I want to ask you, as I'm reading you these facts and asking you these questions, keep in mind in the back of your head, what do you think of the food system in Santa Clara County? So right now, before I start reading you these facts and asking you these questions, think about what you think of the food system in Santa Clara County as of right now, right? What do you think the food system even means? What are your sources for food in this area, right? So just take a moment to think about that. And then when you're ready, go ahead and press play. And we're going to continue reading you some facts. Okay, so while you're thinking about our food system here in Santa Clara County, I'm going to read you a few facts. So the first one, just to get you thinking of, the scale of our food system in Santa Clara County, is that between 1995 and 2015, crop production in the Bay Area overall has decreased by 47%, right? So in San Jose, we used to be known as, a big agricultural community. There were orchards, there were vegetable fields, there was even a cannery, a Del Monte cannery, where they would can peaches and other stone fruits. But now it's become Silicon Valley, right? So instead of being this agricultural hub and center, it's become more a center for technology and innovation. And along with that, our next fact is, along with the growth of technology in this area, the Bay Area population has also grown from 6 million in 1990 to over 7 million in 2019, right? So in just almost 30 short years, we grew from 6 million to 7 million. So there's an increased need to feed 1 million more mouths, right? And when you take that into consideration with the fact that crop production in our area has decreased by almost 50% in that same time frame, it makes you wonder where we're getting our food from, right? If it's not nearby, where is it coming from? And, in addition to having this become a center for technology, we've also seen that brings with it higher costs of living, right? And as of 2015, more than 110,000 people in Santa Clara County currently receive benefits from CalFresh, right? Meaning they don't make enough money each month on their own to buy the food needed for their families. And this could be because of low wages, high cost of living, high housing prices, right? For any number of reasons that someone might need support from programs like CalFresh or SNAP or WIC, right? And when you take into account these 3 facts, right, a decrease in agricultural production, an increase in population, and an increase in people needing these benefits, these programs to feed their families, it makes you wonder, well, what are the reasons for all of this, right? And some questions that might be beneficial to think about, try to find the answers to are, since the Bay Area has largely moved from an agricultural community to a hub of technology and entrepreneurship, how do you think this impacts our food system? Right? How would our food system have changed in that course? Another question is, personally, you yourself, do you find it easy to access fresh and healthy food in your community, right? Is it easy for you to go to the grocery store and find the fresh and healthy foods that you need? Is there even a grocery store in your community? Some of the things to think about when you're thinking about our food system. Another one is, do you find that there are barriers to your food access? Is it that food is too expensive? It costs too much money? Is it that you don't have time because you're working long hours? Is it that there's just, like I said, no grocery stores in your particular neighborhood or community? Or, is it that the grocery stores that are there lack the options that you are used to eating, grew up eating, right, that are culturally relevant to you? And, if you do find a grocery store in your neighborhood, is it difficult for you to find vegetables that are affordable and ethically preferred, right? So if you go to Lunardi, Safeway, Whole Foods, Sprouts, or even Costco, are the foods there foods that you want to eat and can afford to buy, right? So when we think about our food system overall in Santa Clara County, those are things we have to take into account, right? Those are the factors we have to think about. Not only is there food, but the decrease of production, the increase in population, and if that food is something that we can afford or not. So there's a lot of ways that our food system here in Santa Clara County could be better, right? And one of the ways that we need to start this process of bettering it is by understanding what the systems in place, what the systems are that are currently in place, right? So if we think about the traditional conventional food systems, we'll find a few different things, right? On average, in the United States, food travels approximately 1,500 to 2,500 miles from farm to plate, right? So from where a produce is grown, fruit, vegetable, to your plate, it often takes thousands of miles for it to get there, right? It's traveling large distances. And in order to travel these long distances, food is often picked while unripe, right? Because it will ripen as it gets to its destination. But when that happens, you get less nutrition, right? Because the plant isn't allowed to create those nutrients in the fruit, in the vegetables that it needs at peak ripeness. Another issue that we'll see in a lot of conventional food systems is that transporting these foods uses fossil fuel energy, right? They're using diesel trucks, they're using airplanes, and it releases huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, especially in air transportation, right? If you're flying bananas from somewhere in South America where they're naturally grown, importing them into the US, it's much faster to fly them here, but it takes a lot of energy and fuel, and it releases a lot of carbon dioxide. And, another really interesting fact of the conventional food system is that a lot of it is a monopoly, right? There are a few large companies that sort of have their hand in every step of the process. There are seed companies like Monsanto that also own the major chemical herbicides and pesticides like Roundup, right? So they not only create seeds that are dependent on fertilizers and pesticides, but then they also own and sell those pesticides. And they also own the major pharmaceutical companies and drugs that are given to people when they get sick from pesticide usage or exposure. So there's a connection there that we need to be seeing, right? That there's a lot more investment in the profit and success of companies than there might be in the health of not only people that are eating the food, but the people that are working to grow the food, right? If their GMO seeds are created to be dependent on the same fertilizers that they manufacture and sell, and then these fertilizers, give people mysterious illnesses that Monsanto then, owns the drugs that they need to treat those illnesses, it seems, once you get to the root of the problem, that a lot of their decisions are motivated by money and control, right? So we start to notice that the priorities of conventional food systems really aren't focused on human health, right? They're focused more on things like making sure you're using high yield crops, right? Growing a crop in a certain amount of space that will produce the highest yield because that's the most profitable, right? Making sure that when you grow that, you have the lowest production costs, right? That might mean cutting wages or paying farm workers, a very low wage that's not livable. That might mean using cheap materials or harmful pesticides or chemicals because they're cheaper, right? You want a higher resale profit. These companies are all about the bottom line, right? Making that extra dollar. And you want things that have a long shelf life, hence harvesting fruits and vegetables before they're ripe so that they don't go bad when they're on the shelf. But even though they're not going to be as healthy, you want vegetables or you want to grow crops that are resistant to disease and pests. And that might mean that you only grow genetically modified crops or you use herbicides and pesticides. And a lot of times it's easier to grow things in monocrops, right? To only specialize in one crop. So you have a giant field of corn or a giant field of tomatoes or peppers, that is more easily managed than small, diverse plantings of crops that we know are healthier for the environment and for humans, but that are harder to deal with. So as we start to look at all of the processes that take place when you're thinking about growing our food conventionally, we start to see all these problems pop up. And a lot of these problems can be solved by switching over to a different system. And that different system is, a local organic food system. So when we think about the local organic food system, we want to point out a few things, right? Organic food is grown without chemical pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers, right? That's what designates it as organic. So you won't be using things like Miracle-Gro or Roundup on any of these crops, right? Organic gardening only uses natural amendments to the soil to enrich it, right? These are things like homemade compost, alfalfa, green manure, vermiculite, or, composted manure. These are all things that are natural, have no harmful chemicals or pesticides, and will enrich the soil as you use them. They also use natural deterrents for pests like chili pepper flakes, netting, and barriers, or by incorporating pest-deterring plants like marigolds, right? Marigolds repel mosquitoes and rabbits. So there are all of these different ways to deal with the issues that also pop up in conventional food systems, but in an organic way that isn't harmful to humans or to the environment that we're growing the foods in. And we start to see that through these organic practices, there are different priorities of local organic food systems. And those priorities include knowing what is in the soil and the plants, right? We don't want any mysterious substances or harmful chemicals. We want to know that there are no herbicides or pesticides or fertilizers that we use or that our plants are dependent on. Another priority is we want food that is at the peak freshness, right? Because it not only does it have a better flavor because it's allowed to ripen naturally on the plant, but it also is better for our health because there are more nutrients in those plants, right? We want a low environmental impact or no environmental impact, right? If you grow your own vegetables in your backyard, there's little to no pollution from transportation, right? If you don't use fertilizers or pesticides, there's no pollution to water from runoff. If you don't use those chemicals, your soil is going to be healthy and remain clean and not polluted. And another benefit is to keep the profits in the community, right? Whether that's sharing your crops with a neighbor or selling it to them, or whether that's purchasing from your local farmers that grow organically. It's keeping that money here in the community and not sending it off to a giant corporation somewhere. And another priority is you only buy produce that's in season, whether you grow it yourself or you purchase it in the store, because that didn't have to travel all the way from South America or from some other part of the world to be on your plate. That it's in season where you live and it's supposed to be growing when you're eating it. Another priority is that we attract and give homes to beneficial pollinators, right? To bees and butterflies and birds, because those are all a vital part of our local organic food system, right? As we've seen in recent years, bee populations have slowly been declining, and organic food systems prioritize making sure that we do everything in our part to not only prevent that from happening, but also help reverse it, right? Giving homes to bees and to butterflies and other pollinators that are really important for our food systems. And another priority is that the community shares in the harvest, right? Like I said, giving extra produce to your neighbors, teaching your neighbors how to garden themselves, right? Sharing seeds, sharing knowledge, that only benefits a community's health, not only physically, but also emotionally and socially, right? Building a stronger and more resilient community. And these are all, they might seem like really lofty priorities, but they're all easily achievable, right? And one of the ways that Verde wants to achieve these priorities and these goals is through programs like the Home Garden Program, right? So when we think about the Home Garden Program, we want to introduce you to Verde as a whole, right? And what are our priorities through the Home Garden Program and through a program as a whole, right? So Verde as an organization, our mission is that we are dedicated to building healthy and resilient communities by providing low-income families with educational programs, edible gardens, and micro-entrepreneurship opportunities that not only create food security, but can also lead to self-sufficiency, right? We don't want to give a man a fish, we want to teach a man how to fish, right? Or in this case, we don't want to give you vegetables, we want to show you how to grow your own vegetables. And what we envision, what we hope to happen through this, trying to carry out our mission, is we envision a Silicon Valley that has reconnected to its agricultural roots and resources, where there is food access and a healthy lifestyle for all, right? And equitable food access. And, we do that through making sure that we follow through on our priorities, right, of equity, wellness, empowerment, inclusion, reciprocity, and sustainability. You know, by equity, we want to generate conditions and resources that lead to food security, right? Creating access to healthy, culturally relevant foods for those that need it. You know, for wellness, we want to educate others on wellness. We want to enable and give these families the information they need to make choices and to create resources and lifestyles that are healthy and balanced. We want to empower families to become long-term gardeners and even activists in terms of climate change and climate protection, who bring resilience, food security, and micro-entrepreneurship opportunities into their own communities, right? That take matters into their own hands and do what they can. We also focus on inclusion, right? We don't want to segregate anyone. We don't want to prevent anyone from being on our program, right? We embrace and celebrate diversity, and we provide the multi-ethnic community with the opportunity to grow their heritage foods and pass down their culture to future generations, right? We applaud that, we support that, we hold that as a central pillar to our program. And when we talk about reciprocity, we mean that we invite the community to give back, right? And to keep sharing in the yield, you know, to keep sharing knowledge, to keep sharing their experiences, and to engage in these acts of kindness that really will lead to sustainability, right? Will lead to healthy communities. When we talk about sustainability, we don't just mean in our actions in regards to the earth and our gardening habits. We mean that we want to develop communities that are, you know, strong and healthy, and that we have a community-based food system that improves the quality of life, not only in our communities, you know, while supporting regenerative practices, but that will, you know, create a better life overall in the long run and ensure a green environment for the future. And we do that through programs like this, right? Through the Verde Home Garden program, right? Where we not only teach people how to grow their own organic food, but we, you know, try to develop lifelong gardeners, and we focus on the people that need the help the most, right? Or the people that would benefit from this the most. And that means focusing on low income and food insecure neighborhoods. And we want to prioritize multi-ethnic seedlings, you know, making sure that people not only have vegetables, but people have vegetables that they grew up eating that are important to their cultures and to their heritage, right? To make sure that that isn't lost, that that is something that is celebrated now and in the future and in many years to come after that. So we hope that we're able to gain, you know, and meet all of these values and carry them out through this program. And, you know, that is our goal, right? To create healthy communities for people that need them the most. And now we're going to take a look at some of the work that Valley Verde does here in Silicon Valley.
I live in a depressed Latino neighborhood just right on the other side of the freeway. I was just leaving a job that I had for 17 years, and I was looking for the next thing to do. I was 55, and I figured I had a good 10 years of work left in me, good hard work, and I wanted to affect my community in a positive way. So I just decided I'm going to start teaching people how to grow their own food.
Santa Clara County is one of the wealthier counties in the country, yet about a quarter of the residents here are food insecure. So there are some very unique conditions here that also present an opportunity for the community members here to start creating economic prosperity.
There's, you know, a bunch of people just like living under the overpasses in downtown San Jose, whereas Willow Glen, where I live, is way more upscale. There's like really beautiful homes. It's really rare for me to see any homeless people in Willow Glen.
Food sovereignty is the right of communities to be able to control the land and also the decisions about what they grow and what they eat.
So the first program in Valley Verde is the home garden program, and that's just like a basic introduction to gardening. Once you graduate from that, after being in the program for about a year, you can move up to the Deep Mentors program. And then from there, the Super Jardineros program, we can install your own home mini greenhouse. And then from there, you provide seedlings and propagate them, and then you sell them back to Valley Verde and help provide for our families the next year.
Pues sí, la verdad, la renta aquí está muy cara. de sembrar las plantas mejor uno mismo para ahorrarse algo de dinero porque la renta está muy cara.
People, really use this program to elevate their income, to provide for their families, to provide for the communities.
What we're doing here is not about funding greenhouses or raised beds. It's about funding the innovative ideas that are creating wealth within the community members that are participating as part of the program.
Both of these are cucumbers. This one's bell pepper, the same one. I think this one's bell pepper. Yeah, it's bell. This one's hot pepper.
Que pienso que si no estuviera en este programa, no sé qué haría en este tiempo que pues, yo no trabajo, y es donde me da esa oportunidad de cuidar las plantitas y crecerlas.
If we know how to produce and we know how to eat, we are able to change lives, even if it's your own family. But when you know and you share with different families, you're able to change more families, and their families are able to share more. If we learn us to know how to work and eat and produce, we are able to have better life in the future.
So that was a video that was conducted in partnership with the Conservation Fund, because they noticed that the work that we do here is important, right? And it's not only about conserving the land, but it's about conserving the community and the spirit of the community that lives within it, right? So, while we're talking about all of this work, we have to think about, well, what are we tackling? What are we trying to change? And one of the things that we're trying to fix the most is, trying to get rid of these food deserts that have been created in our communities. So when we think about a food desert, we first have to ask ourselves, really, what is it, right? Not everybody might know what it is. And, even if you do know, there's always an opportunity for a greater depth of understanding. So when we think about a food desert, we think about a desert, it's barren, right? So a food desert, when you put those two words together, is an area that is, might be devoid of food or healthy resources or healthy foods. So when we think about it, we have to ask ourselves what might contribute to an area being defined as a food desert, right? So these can be things like having a large distance to grocery stores, having limited access to transportation systems, having limited healthy food options, having no access to farmers markets or healthy food that is affordable, right? Or maybe you live in a neighborhood that has very low income levels, right? So when there are all of these things you think about, really, when you boil it down, it comes down to two factors, right, that create a food desert. So the first one is income, right? So when there are areas or census blocks where more than 30% of the population has income levels below 200% of the poverty line, that's a factor that contributes to a food desert, right? So really low income communities. And the next factor that, when in combination with income creates a food desert, it's distance, right? So census blocks that are more than half a mile from the nearest supermarket or grocery store, and that's not a huge distance, right? But when you think about it, it's really important that people that need food, which is everyone, has access to local food sources, right? So even though when you think about half a mile might not be that much, it could be a lot for someone that has limited access to, transportation, that doesn't have a vehicle, that works long hours, so it's important for these food sources and food centers to be within the community and in close proximity to the people that need it, right? So when you have these two things, a very, more than 30% of the population with income levels below 200% of the poverty line, and census blocks that are more than half a mile away from the nearest grocery store, you get, food deserts. And the characteristics of food deserts, right? So even more things that cause food deserts, besides income and besides, or, that cause an area to be characterized as low income, and that cause an area to be characterized as an area that is far from a food center or grocery store. The causes of these things are related to climate change, right? The increasing temperatures cause less rain in areas that previously relied on rain for agriculture, right? This is a huge problem in California for our local food systems. And, it's important to think about this when we remember how agriculture has decreased in just the Bay Area alone by 47% since the 1990s, right? A lot of that decrease is due to climate change, due to decreasing, water sources for agriculture and to an increased need for water for urban areas. So that's one of the one of the points that can cause food deserts. Another one is poverty, right? As we were speaking of low income. So low income residents do not have the resources to travel to areas with better food options, right? And conventional food industries are less likely to put a health food store in a low income neighborhood, or because of the low purchasing power of the residents. If these companies want to make money, they're going to put it somewhere where they know people can pay for their products, which isn't always it doesn't always keep human beings in mind when you have goals like that. Another cause of food deserts are unfair and inequitable city policies. The policies that decide who can live where and how they can live there impact access to healthy foods. For example, certain neighborhoods are only zoned for single family homes. And this doesn't include, the option for people to rent apartments or, so because of this, lower income families are excluded from neighborhoods with better access to these resources because they can't afford single family homes and that area is only zoned for single family homes. So even things like city policies have an impact on food deserts, where they are forced to live. If they can't afford to live in a neighborhood that has good access to food, they have to go somewhere where they can afford the rent, where you're allowed to have apartments, and that area might be in a food desert. Another cause of food deserts could be racism. People of color are more likely to live in food desert zones because of policies and things that push them to those areas, right? So another cause could be inflation of food prices, right? Food has gotten more and more and more expensive over the decades. And with that, with that inflation of prices for foods, there has not been an equitable and equal, increase in wages. So wages aren't going up, but food prices are going up and up and up way higher than they were before. So that's another cause for food deserts. A lack of transportation systems and infrastructures and reliable transportation systems and infrastructures, right? If you have roads that are continuously getting shut down because they need repairs, if you have, limited bus service, you can end up causing a food desert because people don't have the transportation access they need to get to the grocery store or to the farmer's market or to where they purchase their foods. Another big cause of food deserts is just a lack of food access, right? Studies have shown that low income zip codes have 30% more convenience stores, right, than other areas. And these convenience stores lack healthier food options like fresh vegetables, right? And grocery stores are often not in close proximity to low-income residences. So, all of these things, all of these factors that we have to fight against are the causes of food deserts. So how can we begin to undo these causes and begin to, dismantle food deserts and re-inject communities with healthy food systems and healthy, access to healthy sources for food, right? One of the big ways we can do that is by learning how to plant and grow our own organic food. It sounds, wow, like it can't be as simple as that, but it really can be. By simply planting your own vegetable garden, you are reversing the impacts of food deserts and corporate greed within the conventional food system. Your organic garden can improve the environment by eliminating the use and need for chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Your garden becomes a welcome habitat to endangered pollinators and a variety of creatures and living organisms, right? You're healing the earth. Your garden also has the potential to increase you and your family's access to healthy foods, right? If you have carrots and beets and lettuces and tomatoes growing in your backyard, you have no need to go to the grocery store for them. The grocery store that might be 2, 3, 4, 20 miles away. And you not only have the potential to increase your family's health, but you have the potential to share your harvest and your knowledge with your neighbors and increase their health. And all of these things have an exponential impact in fighting the effects of food deserts, right? In fighting food deserts. You increase your community's food security, you protect the environment from harmful chemicals, you create a welcome habitat for endangered pollinators, creatures, and organisms, right? You improve your health and your family's health, nutritionally, emotionally, socially, physically, and you share that harvest and that knowledge with your neighbors. It all builds up to have a huge positive impact. And we hope that, through this program, we can do our part to give you all the resources and knowledge you need to make this happen, right? And it's a lot easier than you might think. And, hopefully by the end of this, you will look back and see, wow, I did make a difference. This program is helping me. This act of growing my own food makes a huge difference in my life. So that's what we hope to gain out of this. And, to help you start getting on that path, towards increased health, we want to talk a little bit about how to read a food label. Okay, so to begin, we are, when you think about nutrition facts or nutrition labels, it might not be something you've thought about before, right? But if you currently live in a food desert, a lot of the foods that you have access to maybe are processed foods. And processed foods are the foods that have these nutritional labels on them. So it's really important when we're taking this first step to dismantle dismantle conventional food systems and to dismantle food deserts, that we think about the actions we can take now, right? So one of the actions that we can take now when you're surrounded by processed foods that have nutrition facts on them is to know how to read those nutrition facts and to start making choices that are healthier for you and your family. So one of the things that you're going to find, one of the pieces of information that you're going to find on a nutrition facts label is the serving size, right? So right here on this nutrition facts label, we often see that the serving size is near the top, no matter if it's a nutrition facts label for a serving or for the whole box. So right here, we'll see that the serving size is given not only in, cup measurements, so 2/3 of a cup, but also in weight measurements, so 55 grams. We also are able to see what nutrients are in our food, right? So we can see down here that there are, the nutrients are often found at the bottom of the food label, at the nutrition label. We see that this particular food has vitamin D. We see that it has calcium, iron, potassium. And we also see, the recommended daily value, what percentage of, a recommended daily value of these nutrients and vitamins does this food give us, right? So here we see that this food gives us 10% of our recommended vitamin D. We see that it gives us 20% of our recommended calcium. And it's not the entire, container. Remember, it is 2/3 of a cup of it. So over here we see this nutrition label has information per serving, which would be this column, but it also has per container, right? So right here, we see that we have, if we have one serving of this food, we're getting 25% of our vitamin D. But if we eat the whole container, we're getting 50% of our vitamin D, right? 30% of our calcium, 20% of our iron, 20% of our potassium, or 10% of our iron and 20% of our potassium. We see the differences between the servings and the containers, and we're able to make more informed choices for our health, right? It's not always recommended to get all of your nutrients from packaged foods, from prepackaged foods. You need a well-rounded diet, but this helps us make sense and start to understand a little bit better the nutrients that our body needs and the nutrition we're giving ourselves, right? We also might see ingredients. There's often an ingredients label right below or right next to the nutrition facts label when you're looking at it on the back of the package, right? We see things like, we're able to, read and see things like hidden sugars and sodium, right? So you might be asking, what's a hidden sugar? Well, recently, nutrition labels have been required to include not only the total sugars that are inside of the food you're consuming, but also whether, what portion of those are added sugars. So here we see that this specific food has 12 grams of total sugar, but 10 of those are included sugars and are added sugars. So these added sugars are things like high fructose corn syrup, regular sugar, or different like fructose corn syrups. So these are things, these added sugars are the sugars that are unhealthy for you, right? Because there is sugar in fruits and vegetables that is naturally occurring. And that sugar benefits your body in some way because not only does it give you a short burst of energy, but it is in a complete package that has fiber and vitamins and other things that your body needs, as opposed to added sugars, which are the simple sugar molecule that will get down broken quickly in your body and might not be as healthy and are not as healthy for you, right? So it's important to know what the added sugars are and what percentage of added sugar is in the foods that we're eating, because avoiding added sugars, and being conscious of the added sugars that we're eating is important for our health, right? So here we see that in one serving of this food, right, in 2/3 of a cup of this food, we see that we're eating 20% of our daily recommended value of sugars, right? So it's important to know, wow, with this one serving, I'm eating 1/5 of the amount of sugar I should be eating for the day. And it's important to know that, right? And not only for sugar, but for salt. Salt affects things like blood pressure and other aspects of our health, right? So here we see sodium is 160 grams, and that's 7%. So it's not too bad. But over here we see per serving, sodium is 10% of our daily value. All right, not too bad. But if I happen to eat the whole container, this might be something like a bag of chips, right? If I happen to eat the whole container, I'm eating 21% of my daily recommended value of sodium. So it's important to notice these things, right? So that we can make more conscious decisions. And, if you have any questions at all about this, about, calories, total fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, proteins, all of those things, how to read this, how to start understanding it. We're going to be speaking more about nutrition and these different factors. We're going to be speaking about fats. We're going to be speaking about carbs. We're going to be speaking about proteins in future classes. So go ahead and stick around, and we're going to teach you all a lot about nutrition and how we should be eating healthily. But if you have any questions now, please feel free to reach out to your program coordinator. Please feel free to write a comment in the box below, and we'll try to help you out with different resources. And as always, a good resource is a health professional. If talking to a doctor is a great resource. Doing your own research online from reputable sources is also a great resource for information on not only reading food labels, but also on nutrition in general. And another quick tip that we want to share with you all is a little known fact, but it's very helpful when we're starting to think about the conventional food system and its goals and how we can be eating healthier, is how to read produce stickers, right? So you might notice that when you buy an apple or a tomato or an orange at the store, that it has a little produce sticker on it. And a lot of times we don't give it a second thought, right? I know I haven't. But there are numbers on those produce stickers, and those numbers actually give us a wealth of information. So we see here, these numbers actually stand for different things. So if you have a produce sticker that is 4 digits long and starts with the number 4, you know that produce was grown conventionally, right? Any produce with the produce sticker that has 4 digits and starts with the number 4 was grown conventionally, which means more often than not, it was sprayed with pesticides, or it has other chemicals in it, or there was synthetic fertilizers that were used to grow that. So it's important to know this, because if you are buying something like strawberries that have a very thin skin that were sprayed with pesticides, you might not want to buy the conventional one. But if you're buying something like an orange that might have been sprayed with pesticides, you can peel that orange, right? And only eat what's inside, or wash it beforehand and be careful not to eat it. Same thing with bananas. And it's important because even though there are organic options, right? Like right here, we can see the produce sticker that has 5 digits and starts with a 9. That's something that was grown organically. It's great to know that there are options that are grown organically. If you find, the produce that has a 5-digit number that starts with a 9 on it, and we know that one's free of pesticides, but oftentimes, this produce is more expensive, right? So if you find yourself in a situation where you need to choose, between the conventional and the organic, think about the way that you're consuming that. Are you going to peel it? Obviously you should be washing all of your produce, but are you going to eat the peel? Are you going to, peel it and boil it? Are you going to eat it fresh? These are things that you can consider when thinking about whether you should buy conventional or whether you should buy organic, right? Another thing to think about is whether you're okay with buying foods that are genetically modified. So right here we see that any produce sticker that has 5 digits and starts with an 8 is something that's genetically modified. And this means that it could have been grown for, its size, its resistance to pests. There's a lot of conflicting research out there on genetically modified organisms, but one thing that we are sure of is purchasing this kind of produce supports companies like Monsanto, right? That create genetically modified foods, that create fertilizers and pesticides. So it might not be a company that you want to be giving your money to, right? Maybe you want to support organic agriculture instead. So it's important to know which foods are conventional, which foods are organic, and which foods are genetically modified, right? So to review, the conventional produce is labeled with a sticker that has 4 digits and starts with a 4. The organic produce is labeled with a sticker that has 5 digits and starts with a 9. And the genetically modified produce is labeled with a sticker that has 5 digits and starts with an 8. So you can go ahead and pause this, take a picture of this here. It might help you to know, when you go to the grocery store, what each of those numbers stands for. So go ahead and take a picture of it now if you need it. And with this quick tip, we're gonna go ahead and conclude our first ever online workshop. So some announcements we have. The next video in this series will be released here on YouTube in February, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, reach out to your coordinator with any questions or comments. If you haven't filled out the required forms yet to be a part of the program, reach out to them as well. If you have a friend that is interested in signing up in the program that you think they'd really enjoy it, again, reach out to us. If you just want to talk to us and get to know us more, we're always happy to hear from our participants. So we'd love to hear, get a call from you or a text or an email. So don't be shy. We're here to help you. We're here to learn with you and to learn from you as well. We always learn so much from the community, and it, fulfills us in so many ways. And as always, take care, and we hope to see you here with the next video. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.